In this video, we are going to learn how to enhance our English by reading stories. So, we are taking reference book 10-minute stories published by Mills Kelly Publishing Limited, UK. Hi guys, welcome to VKN English classes. So, let us get started. Today I am going to narrate a story. Name of the story is The Spider and the Toad. The story is taken from Wood Magic by Richard Jeffries. One morning, as little Sir Bevis, such was his pet name, was digging in the farmhouse garden. He saw a daisy and throwing aside his spade, he sat down on the grass to pick the flower to pieces. A flutter of wings sounded among the blossom on an apple tree close by, and instantly Bevis sat up, knowing it must be Goldfinch thinking of building a nest in the branches. If the trunk of the tree had not been so big, he would have tried to climb it at once. But he knew he would not do it, nor could he see the bird for the leaves and bloom. A puff of wind came and showered the petals down upon him. They fell like snowflakes on his face and dotted the grass. Buzz, a great humblebee with a band of gold across his back, flew up and hovered near, wavering to and fro in the air as he stayed to look at a flower. Buzz, Bevis listened and knew very well what he was saying. It was, "This is a sweet little garden, my darling, a very pleasant garden, all grass and daisies and apple trees, and narrow patches with flowers and fruit trees one side, and a wall and currant bushes another side, and a low box hedge and a ha-ha where you can see the high moving grass quite underneath you, and a round summer house in the corner, painted as blue inside as a hedge sparrow's egg is outside, and then another ha-ha with iron railings which you are always climbing up, Bevis, on the fourth side, with stone steps leading down a meadow where the cows are feeding and where they have left all the buttercups standing as tall as your waist, sir. The gate in the iron railings is not fastened, and besides, there is a gap in the box hedge, and it is easy to drop down the ha-ha wall. But that is mowing grass there. You know very well you could not come to any harm in the meadow. They said, you are not to go outside the garden, but that's all nonsense and very stupid. I am going outside the garden, Bevis. Good morning, dear Buzz. And the great humblebee flew slowly between the iron railings, out among the buttercups and away up the field. Bevis went to the railings and stood on the lowest bar. Then he opened the gate a little way, but it squeaked so loud upon its rusty hinges that he let it shut again. He walked around the garden, along beside the box hedge, to the patch by the lilac trees. They were single lilacs, which are much more beautiful than the double, and all bowed down with a mass of bloom. Some rhubarb grew there, and to bring it up the faster, they had put a round wooden box on it, hollowed out from the sunbutt of an elm. One of these round wooden boxes had been split and spoiled, and half of it was left, lying on the ground. Under this shelter, a toad had his house. Bevis peered in at him and touched him with a twig to make him move an inch or two, for he was so lazy, and sat there all day long, except when it rained. Sometimes the toad told him a story, but not very often, for he was a silent old philosopher and not very fond of anybody. He had a nephew, quite a lively young fellow, in the cucumber frame on the other side of the lilac bushes, at whom Bevis also peered nearly every day after they had lifted the frame and propped it up with wedges. The gooseberries were no bigger than beets, but he tasted too, and then a thrush began to sing on an ash tree in the hedge of the meadow. Bevis, Bevis, said the thrush, and he turned round to listen. Have you forgotten the meadow and the buttercups and the sorrel? You know the sorrel, don't you? That tastes so pleasant if you nibble the leaf. And I have a nest in the bushes, not very far up the hedge, and you may take just one egg. There are only two yet, but don't tell any more boys about it, or we shall not have one left. That is a very sweet garden, but it is small. I like all these fields to fly about in, and the swallows fly ever so much farther than I can, so far away and so high that I cannot tell you how they find their way home to the chimney, but they will tell you if you ask them. Good morning, I am going over the brook. Bevis went to the iron railings and got up two bars and looked over, but he could not yet make up his mind, so he went inside the summer house, which had one small round window. All the lower part of the blue walls was scribbled and marked with pencil, where he had written and drawn, and put down his ideas and notes. The lines were somewhat intermingled and crossed each other, and some stretched out long distances and came back in sharp angles, but Bevis knew very well what he meant when he wrote it all. Taking a stump of cedar pencil from his pocket, he added a few scrawls to the inscriptions, and then stood on the seat to look out of the round window, which was darkened by an old cobweb. Once upon a time, there was a very cunning spider, a very cunning spider indeed. The old toad by the rhubarb told Bevis there had not been such a cunning spider for many summers. He knew almost as much about flies as the old toad, and caught such a great number that the toad began to think there would be none left for him. Now the toad was extremely fond of flies, and he watched the spider with envy and grew more angry about it every day. As he sat blinking and winking by the rhubarb in his house all day long, the toad never left off thinking about the spider. And as he kept thinking, so he told babies, he recollected that he knew a great deal about a good many other things besides flies. So one day, after several weeks of thinking, he crawled out of his house in the sunshine, which he did not like at all, and went across the grass to the iron railings, where the spider had then got his web. The spider saw him coming, and being very proud of his cleverness, began to taunt and tease him. Your back is all over warts, and you are an old toad, he said. You are so old that I heard the swallows saying their great grandmothers, when they built in the chimney, did not know when you were born, and you have got foolish and past doing anything, and so stupid that you hardly know when it is going to rain. Why, the sun is shining bright, you stupid old toad, and there is not a chance of a single drop falling. You look very ugly down there is the grass. Now, don't you wish that you were me and I could catch more flies than you could eat? Why, I can catch wasps and bees and tie them up so tight with my threads that they cannot sting nor even move their wings, nor so much as wriggle their bodies. I am the very cleverest and most cunning spider that ever lived. Indeed, you are, replied the toad. I have been thinking so all the summer, and so much do I admire you, that I have come all this way, across in the hot sun, to tell you something. Tell me something, said the spider, much offended. I know everything. Oh, yes, honored sir, said the toad. You have such wonderful eyes and such a sharp mind. It is true that you know everything about the sun and the moon and the earth and flies. But as you have studied all these great and important things, you could hardly see all the very little trifles like a poor old toad. Oh, yes, I can. I know everything, everything. But, sir, went on the toad so humbly, this is such a very little thing, and a spider like you, in such a high position of life, could not mind me telling you such a mere nothing. Well, I don't mind, said the spider. You may go on and tell me if you like. The fact is, said the toad, while I have been sitting in my hole, I have noticed that such a lot of the flies that come into this garden presently go into the summer house there, and when they are in the summer house, they always go to that little round window, which is sometimes quite black with them. for it is the nature of flies to buzz over glass. I do not know so much about that, said the spider, for I have never lived in houses, being an independent insect, but it is possible you may be right. At any rate, it is not of much consequence. You had better go up into the window, old Toad. Now, this was a sneer on the part of the spider. But I can't climb up into the window, said the Toad. All I can do is to crawl about the ground, but you can run up a wall quickly. How I do wish I was a spider like you. Oh dear! And then the Toad turned around after going to the clever spider and went back to his hole. Now the spider was secretly very much mortified and angry with himself because he had not noticed this about the flies going to the window in the summer house. At first, he said to himself that it was not true, but he could not help looking that way now and then. And every time he looked, there was the window crowded with flies. They had all the garden to buzz about in, and all the fields. But instead of wandering under the trees and over the flowers, they preferred to go into the summer house and crawl over the glass of the little window. Though it was very dirty from so many feet. For a long time, the spider was too proud to go there too. But one day, such a splendid blue bottle fly got in the window and made such a tremendous buzzing that he could not resist it any more. So he left his web by the railings and climbed up the blue painted wall over baby's writings and marks and spun such a web in the window as had never before been seen. It was the largest and the finest and the most beautiful web that had ever been made, and it caught such a number of flies that the spider grew fatter every day. In a week's time, he was so big that he could no longer hide in the crack he had chosen. He was quite a giant, and the toad came across the grass one night and looked at him. But the spider was now so bloated he would not recognize the toad. But one morning, a robin came to the iron railings and perched on the top and put his head a little on one side to show his black eye the better. Then he flew inside the summer house, alighted in the window, and gobbled up the spider in an instant. The old toad shut his eye and opened it again, and went on thinking, for that was just what he knew would happen. Ever so many times in his very long life, he had seen spiders go up there, but no sooner had they got fat than a robin or a wren came in and ate them. Some of the clever spiders' web was there still when Bevis looked out of the window, all dusty and ragged, with the skins and wings of some gnats and a dead leaf entangled in it. Here, the the story ends. Now, you should go through all the grammatical structure of the sentences like tenses, direct, indirect, active, passive, prepositions, etc. and read the story loudly by yourself at least 2-3 times more to enable you to understand it properly in order to improve your English. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe, like and share this channel. I will see you in my next video. Till then, bye bye. Happy learning.